Hi everyone, welcome back to the Immergence Show. I'm Nico Fara and I'm joined by my co-host Casey Jensen. And today we're diving into a conversation that cuts right through the future of how we build, fund, and interact with the internet. You've probably heard the phrase content is king. Well, that was the last era. We're entering one where culture is capital and the platforms, brands, creators who understand that first will win the next decade. Our guest today is someone who has been ahead of the curve across every digital wave, from building Canada's first e-commerce infrastructure to scaling global entertainment platforms to selling avatar-powered social companies, and now helping startups around the world through tokenization and digital innovation. So great to have you both here. Thank you so much, Casey, for co-hosting, and thank you, David, for being here. I would love to start with Casey doing a quick intro of himself, and then we get into all the great stuff from David.
Cool. Great to be here. David's, I love David. He's been a mentor of mine, and he's an amazing guy. And I'm excited to learn more about it because we haven't talked in a while. David used to we talked all the time, and he's been busy, so it's exciting to see that. So I'm Casey Jensen. I'm with a company, Zebra. I handle all client partnerships and development for North America. And what we do is we're a creative technology studio. We focus on building out all kind of XR and immersive content, everything from Unreal Engine for virtual production to all kind of immersive live interactive content for everything from live events to other experiential type activations. So yeah, so excited to be here.
Well, I guess maybe I'll give you
Yeah,
an introduction on myself. Thanks so much, Nico and Casey, for having me today. My name is David Lucatch. I'm actually located in Toronto, Canada, and just had the great pleasure of coming back from Dubai for the Token 2049 week. So my career started literally in paper. I started in the print industry when print was still fashionable back in the 1980s, and actually started desktop publishing very early, and computerization and direct to what we call plate imaging, and where the forefront of desktop publishing and print met. By the mid 90s, I saw this thing called the internet coming up, and I wanted to be part of it, and divested myself of my ownership in my print companies and wanted to build them all, literally build them all. But for those that are old enough to remember, e-commerce didn't exist back then. And so we worked with Visa and MasterCard and a few other firms, Thomas Cook when they were around in the UK, and First Data Corporation, which is now Fiserv, and I think they're in the process of rebranding again, to create Canada's first e-commerce payment gateways. And that allowed Canadians to use credit cards online. Took that company public in Canada. Left the company before the sort of the tech wreck in 2000, and started my own incubator. Ran that for about 12 years, and along the way with that, financed a very unique piece of software in 2010 that was a large language model for artificial intelligence. Now today, that seems pretty norm, but in 2010 it wasn't. We actually interconnected all the major messaging platforms around the world, and you could instantly translate conversations. I mean, instantly, with about a 99.8% accuracy. And we had over 200 million people using that platform. And again, another public company. We also worked for the movie industry, some of the governments. You could be on a red carpet and a famous celebrity could be giving an interview in English, and we could translate it into 68 language instantaneously with a ribbon running below the browser so that somebody could see it, whatever language the browser was set to. And again, we're going back to 2010, 2011, 2012. That was really cutting edge. During that time, we also established a Guinness World Record with Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley from KISS for the most nationalities in an online chat. And also did some work for the New York Yankees and the Yes Network, and was nominated for an Emmy there. Did some really crazy projects in the movie industry. Moved into crypto with compliance, digital identity, and technology in about 2016, 17, and I'd like to say the rest is history. Did help build the first metaverse, avatar-based games, avatar-based karaoke, and just recently sold those companies. And now my focus is I've just been upgraded to the chief investment officer for the block in Dubai. So long history, 30 odd years or 30 plus years in sort of the internet space, and find myself here today. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Amazing. Thank you so much. What a fascinating background and really inspiring. And congratulations on the new role. That's very exciting.
Be
I
careful what
want
you wish for, but I think it'll be really great.
Amazing. So happy that you're announcing it here today. And yeah, I want to thank our audience before we get into more questions. Thanks for Ian, Matt, Felipe, and everyone else who's tuning in live. We appreciate you. Please put in your question, tag your friends, and we're going to have a very cool conversation. So, David, you talked about how you've been as part of different like transitions of the internet from like Web 1, Web 2. What have you seen kind of staying consistent across and hasn't really changed?
Well, it changes, but it's consistent. People are people, right? So at the end of the day, if you're going to succeed in, in an internet endeavor, you have to satisfy the basic needs of your audience. So my areas that really focus on the consumer side of the internet. Although I'm familiar with obviously business to business activities, but I'm really attuned to where the intersection of people and online activities exist. So people generally stay the same. I think there are obviously different nuances and different attention spans based on the generation you're in, and we're seeing more and more of that today. But effectively, the consumption model is just enormous. There's so much content out there, but there is so much consumption. So I think consumption stays consistent.
Thank you so much. Such a good point. And yeah, I mean, this is really an important factor that in all social commerce components that we're seeing too. Cool. So let's talk about Be Me. Such a great project that, Casey has been telling me a lot of cool updates that you guys have been doing and then finally got acquired. I'm very curious if you can just tell our audience what it was, how it progressed, how it got sold, to whatever extent you can share with us.
Sure. So Beamy was and still is the ability. I'll talk about the acquisition. The ability for an individual to create an avatar that can literally recognize facial expressions, lip syncing, and head movement, and combine that with karaoke. I mean, everybody loves to sing, just people don't like to sing in front of others, right? So Beamy gives you the opportunity to sing your favorite songs. We have a catalog of over 10,000 songs. Your favorite songs without anyone having to see who you are. You can be whoever you want to be, or you can be me, right? So that was the premise for the product. Well received, a lot of early excitement and continued excitement. And friends of ours in the space, led by Michael Gord at GDA Capital, asked if we would be interested in partnering with them with their financial services product, Flashy. And the impetus for this is very simple. A gaming consumer has a valuation of, I'm just going to use a number, let's say it's $200, okay, on a lifetime value model. A financial consumer on the internet has a value of $1,000. So if you can take a financial product and build a community around it with consumers that the consumption model consume other things, including the financial services, you're going to leverage up that model. And Beamy and a game company we have fit those bill. So ultimately, Flashy is creating this unique ecosystem around financial services products, social entertainment, gaming, and this ecosystem really personifies a value increase equation.
Really cool. And I would love to hear what Casey wants to add to that. I know you are a big fan, Casey. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, David. One thing I would say is, what did you learn through the BME experience. I know, as we worked on, one thing I've learned with David is that he can adjust. He can adjust quickly and make decisions and make sound decisions and go for it to be able to pivot for different things to be able to hit the success he wants to do. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit just the things you learned through that process of BME.
Well, learning to adjust, it's always difficult to mention this name today, but I was very fortunate early in 2000, like I think it was 2002, based on some charity fundraising work I was doing, to have an invitation to meet with America's mayor at the time, Rudolph Giuliani. Now, Mr. Giuliani has gone through a number of transitions in the last few years, but if you go back to 2002, he was America's mayor, and he was such a major player. And I asked him what makes a great leader, and his answer was, make a decision. You can always change your mind, but you need to make decisions. So it's not about pivoting. A lot of people, when you don't find success, say, I like to pivot. Your journey should not be a straight line. It is a series of squiggles and forks in the road. Life is not a straight line. If you look back, even at the age of 20 or 30, and look at what you've done so far, you could say, well, I never thought I'd be there. Well, you may have never thought at the time you'd be there, but you made those conscious decisions to get where you are today. So, I continuously learn from every project we're involved in, and BME was no exception. We learned what people loved, what people liked, and what people really disliked, right? So I call that, it's like a good spaghetti Western. What's the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And that's the way that we approach things. We look at what people love, what people dislike, and really what they hate. Get rid of the hate, try and convert the dislike, and personify the like. So BME, as we started to progress with BME, we didn't pivot, but we made adjustments to the model as we went, so that people had a better understanding. You've also got to listen to your audience. If you think you've got it right, you're absolutely wrong. You've got to listen to people, because what you think is right. And again, one of the things, Casey, you and I have talked about this dozens of times. We call this blue theory, right? It's my big thing is calling it blue theory. If I asked each of you to pick a color blue, I guarantee it's blue. It's just not the blue I'm thinking of. So when we talk about things, we're all talking about the same things, but we're not talking about the same things. So make sure you understand the question so you can give an answer that people are looking for. And don't give them an answer they want, or what they want to hear. Give them an answer which they can build upon, because it's not the problem, it's the solution.
What a great advice. Thank you so much. And life is definitely not a straight line. I really appreciate all of these good points. And I want to just pause and thank our amazing audience. They have a lot of questions as well. They have a lot of comments. Thanks, Ian, for tagging so many of your friends and connections. Thank you, Shadi, for the question. And Matt, thank you for bringing back Leto. We are so happy and excited that you all are so engaged. So let's talk about your current organization as well. Like now you're completely focused on the blockchain side of things. Maybe tell us a little bit more about that transition, and then we can get into more of that.
Well, on a go-forward basis, my activities are focused on my own investments, and in conjunction with that, what the block is doing in Dubai. So the block is an international chamber of virtual assets. It's unique on a global basis because it's looking to bring the world of blockchain through a recognized party to both investors and deal flow, and promote and educate and provide access. So it's both a physical location and a remote ecosystem. And I had the distinct honor of being in Dubai last week, and the reaction was just astounding. And for those who have never been to Dubai before, it is an amazing place. It's the epicenter of international, what I call real business, where people who are small, large, anywhere in between, and I'm talking small, I'm looking to raise $100,000 to people looking to raise, $1 billion are in the same space. There are There's no requirement to be politically correct because nobody cares, right? It's just, it's all about what are your objectives? How can I help you? And how can we both, create value together? And it was just great to see that attitude because there has been so much divisiveness across the globe in the last few years, and so much I'm here, you're there, I'm green, you're purple. That doesn't matter. So and the block is accelerating at like at superhuman pace. um, Members are coming on board. There's a ecosystem called the Investor Circle. There's a startup program that's just coming online. There's media partners. Yesterday they announced Cointelegraph as one of their media partners. um, Avalanche is involved, Polymesh is involved. I'm trying to remember what's public and what's not public, but it's really a phenomenal ecosystem. And where I'm looking to help is throughout the organization, but primarily on that intersection between investors and investees, because I'm been on the investee side for most of my career, although I've made some investments and raised a lot of capital. At the end of the day, one of the big things that I see in North America that's different in the global sense is that many firms in North America want to down round the founders. They want to decrease the founders' ownership. I think that is a recipe for disaster. If you don't have your visionary on board, what you should be doing is trying to create value around that founder and prop them up, not knock them down. If we look at some of the best companies in the world, whether it's Shopify, and arguably you could say whatever you want about any of these companies, but whether it's Shopify, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Facebook, you know, um, uh, their founders have a lion's share of the business, and it's a rising tide equation where all boats are raised equally. So um, I personally want to instill, and I think the messaging of the block is to create this collaborative, first in class ecosystem for the blockchain industry around the world.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
watched the Twitter documentary on HBO Max, and and that will it goes right along that path of when you sort of oust a founder,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so yeah, it happens a lot.
yeah. It happens a lot, and generally speaking, companies collapse shortly thereafter. Um, you know, um, uh, I'll tell you, it happened. It happened to me, and it's always a sad day when and the investor group thinks they can do a better job, and it's really sadder when you see 12 months or 13 months later the company collapse because they weren't in it for the customer, they were in it for the dollars, right? They were in it for the vision. So I would say that the blocks messaging is about collaboration, it's about growth, it's about value creation, and in one of the most super cool spaces in the world.
Amazing. So
Right. Yeah, I
go
think
ahead.
basically this is a good segment to
Yeah.
segue to go to the segment 4 and related to Dubai stuff. Maybe you can take it over.
Yeah, cool. So, we know, as you said, Dubai is leading the world in virtual asset innovation, and they're doing a lot of things right, like you said. And what are some other things, you mentioned a couple, but what are some other things that they are doing differently that the US and other markets really should pay attention to and possibly implement ASAP?
Well, again, Dubai is an Emirates within the UAE. So there's, you've got Abu Dhabi really focused on the ADGM, focused on, upcoming stock exchanges, where Dubai is something focusing more so on what we call the VARA experience, the virtual asset, regulatory experience, where you can create both utility tokens and RWAs, or real world asset tokens, within the framework of Fara. I will say this at all times. I am not a lawyer. I am not an accountant, and I'm not an investment advisor. So I can't. Everybody needs to always do their own due diligence. But what I find uniquely different is the receptiveness to the expansion of this opportunity. Now, I will say, I believe there was a document circulated on Twitter yesterday on May 5th that talked about some of the proposed upcoming changes to the regulations in crypto in the US, in which utility tokens, if they're sold in particular ways, that would follow meme coins and others, may no longer be viewed as securities under the SEC guidelines. But it's also about having enough oversight. I don't want to say regulation, but it is regulation. But I'm going to say oversight to create a framework for success, not a framework for failure. And the unfortunate part when it comes to North America is, and I was very fortunate. I advised the FinTech Working Group at the SEC about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And the problem is that the 1933-34 Act, the Securities Act, just didn't allow for tokenization. It just didn't. And it's been a challenge all the way through, and we've seen all the lawsuits and the challenges. But at the same time, then you have to look at the tax code. And if you're a security, the money that you raise falls onto your balance sheet, sort of in that capital raise or shareholder equity side of the business. But if you're a utility, I think the IRS and other tax authorities could view you as a product or service, and you really owe tax on the money that you've earned, because it is an earning. So there's been a lot of controversy. Dubai has the benefit, and if anyone's ever been, let's say, to Europe, there were tons of satellite dishes, on balconies in Europe because they didn't have the infrastructure of cable, right? In North America, we had that infrastructure. They didn't have the infrastructure of the telecoms that we did, so they went from right to G3 or 3G, sorry, instead of CDMA and TDMA in technology. North America has been very infrastructure laden, heavy, where if you go to Shanghai today, I mean, the roads are brilliant, they're brand new, because they didn't have roads that they needed to fix for the last 35 years. So we're seeing that the acceleration of places like Dubai, because they get to start from a later point. They don't have this massive, flywheel infrastructure, hamster wheel infrastructure that other places do. So Dubai is more nimble, it's more effective, and it can create value faster.
Cool. And you guys, the block is helping sort of navigate through some of that framework, regulatory framework, and all the stuff that could scare some people off a little bit. So
yeah, I think there's two pieces to the block. If you're looking to locate in MENA, then the block for physicality is a perfect solution. So if you've got a large organization, you want to have a footprint in Dubai, the block offers that. If you want remote access, the block offers that. If you want guidance, mentoring, servicing, there are partners within the block that can provide that. It's very cost effective. If you want formation in Dubai, that can happen. So all the things that you need to do in that region can easily be managed through the block. But at the same time, there's I want to be part of that cool experience. I want to be part of that named experience. I want to be part of something where someone says, this is a trusted brand, I'm associated with a trusted brand. And it was amazing to see the gravitation in the last couple months of organizations coming to the block and saying, this is the new epicenter, right? This is where it needs to be. This is I want to be associated here, and then I'm here for to build my business. I'm here to build my business with others. I'm here to grow and expand my operations. And again, both virtually and physically.
Yeah, that's cool. So so you've talked a little bit about the opportunities. Now, what are some opportunities that entrepreneurs, especially in North America, what do you think 12 months from now, 24 months from now, what do you think are going to be the things that really pop up that people should keep a lookout for when it comes to things happening?
So first of all, if you go to the block block.ae, which is the website for the block, the block.ae. You know, if you're a family office high net worth investor fund, you can join the investor circle. It doesn't at this time. It doesn't cost you anything. And if you want to, there is in the very near future an acceleration model coming, and if you a startup, you can also apply. Again, at this point in time, you know, it doesn't cost you anything. If you want to become a member, there are member programs, but they're very effective. So I think, and you know, the North American team or the Dubai team can certainly talk to you about membership. I think there's a huge value proposition to come out and at least explore. I mean, you know, in you know 2018, 2019, and it's still very effective. Was the Crypto Valley, you know, Blockchain Association in Switzerland in Zug, and I was a member of that originally. But I think the block is the next evolution. I think this is what's happening today in Web3. Anyone who's not a member of the block, I think, is going to be sorry that they didn't join earlier. And that's not a pitch. That's a as an entrepreneur and as someone who has been involved in financing, and the need to have experts around the table, regardless of the business you're in, whether you're in, you know, Web3 token based businesses, or AI, or, you know, media entertainment, or you're even in, you know, traditional resource businesses, and you want access to capital, and you want access to mentoring and understanding how tokenization can support your business, it's worthwhile at least exploring what the block has to offer.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And, you know, speaking of tokenization, and we do have a couple of questions about it. So let's get into that topic a little bit more. For, you know, anyone who might not be very familiar with the concept of tokenization, how can you like explain it in, you know, simple language? Like, what's the real world value of this type of tokenization?
Well, there's so everybody's familiar with if I buy a share of Apple through Robinhood or through a brokerage firm, I own a share of Apple, and that's an equity, right? That's an equity. It doesn't give you any rights, or it does give you rights, but it doesn't really give you, you know, rights that you can actually collect on immediately. But tokenization, if it's a real world asset or a security token, gives you the same type of situation. With RWAs, real world asset tokens, we're looking at different types of applications. We're looking at, I've got a building, I want a million people to own that building, right? I want to own so that's fractionalization. I have a painting. I have something that has high collector value. Stuff in the background, not so much. It's just for fun. But I do have, you know, I've been a comic book collector for over 50 years, so I do have some really cool comics. But you can fractionalize that comic with real world asset token. Utility tokens, think of it more as membership, right? It's not an equity. It's more of a soft opportunity that gives you certain rights, or not contractual rights, but gives you certain opportunities within that ecosystem. If I hold tokens in an ecosystem, I have a membership in which gives me this value in this organization. It could be a game, it could be all kinds of stuff. NFTs are similar in utility. So there's different ways to classify different opportunities that are non-traditional to stock markets, right? And you know, the investing public today, or the participating public today, is less interested in traditional offerings than they're looking at, you know, what's the next great space. Meme coins are a whole nother ball of wax that I usually don't get involved in, but you know, they're kind of a hype cycle. I'm looking at things and vetting things that have both real world value, again in RWAs, and have front of the line access with utility tokens.
Love it. Thank you so much for that definition. And we do have excitement. Chris is very bullish in RWAs. And yeah, thank you for all the comments, Ian, Felipe, Shadi, everyone who is engaged. We're going to get to your questions as well. But before that, What do you see is like the biggest early wins that has happened for tokenized assets? Like, are there any companies that you have seen or worked with that made mistakes? What has been the wins? Anything you can share?
It's like anything that's new. You're going to see some really good wins. You're going to see some, spectacular, unfortunately, failures. Um, Real world assets are really just coming to bear now. There have been some land and buildings that have tried to fractionalize. Um, for some people, that's super sexy. For others, it's not sexy. As a retail play, fractionalizing a building is not really super sexy. Oh, look at I own 1/millionth of this building. That's great. So RWAs have to fit. I think RWAs have to have two models. They have to have an institutional model, and where applicable, they have to have a retail model. So you may not always find that with securitized tokens that there is an active market. I think you have to try and find a blend between the two, and that's what we do. We try and when we look at RWAs, real world assets, we say how does this fit the consumer, because the consumer is a much larger segment and a much more liquidity play segment than is our institutional investors, right? But if you have an institutional investor group, you may want to consider doing a royalty play. So I don't own the building, but if the building generates a profit, I get a piece of that profit, right? Sort of like having what we call, like a real estate income trust, right? So similar to that. And then utilities are all about what's in it for me. What's in it for me? So we're creating tokenization for membership programs to the areas of focus. I should stop there and say the area of focus that I really look at for myself is consumer tech, entertainment, media, sports, artificial intelligence, and then really sort of special situations. So when I look at it from view as what is the consumer going to get out of this project that's going to make them want to hold tokens that give them a certain value. So, and we have a project that we just announced called Good Game, and Good Game is an organization that is producing. If you think about American Idol, think of American Idol for the gaming industry. So you can become a member, and you buy a small amount of tokens, and if you stake those tokens, you're going to be able to get a membership for life. So that's the value. You can spend, let's say, $20 a year, fiat, get a yearly membership, and gives you all kinds of incentives. Or you can spend $20 on tokens, stake or put those tokens on hold, and you can have a membership as long as you stake those tokens. So if you look at the value proposition, I can spend $20 every year, or I can spend $20 once. So a utility token holder has this massive benefit that a fiat purchaser doesn't. So that's where you've got to drive value, right? You've got to find these unique opportunities to create value within an ecosystem. And we believe, and I've been working with Good Game 2 years while they've been looking to put this together, and they did a phenomenal job of having a pilot sort of season in Asia that had over 200 million views and won an award for an APAC Broadcaster Award. So these guys, and the head of Good Game, again, you look at Pedigree next. Head of Good Game is from the US, but he was the first director of Twitch Asia. So you've got to look at these great people and find out what their passion is and help unleash their passion.
Yeah, Nico, this made me think about something. I'm really big, and Nico, we talk about all this time as far as building community, and brands need to start really focusing on building community, not just this temporary engagement that they've been so focused on. And David, so it sounds like what you just talked about is really a way to help that and work on that and start building that community and drive it a lot deeper than what brands are doing right now.
Well, again, one of the partners at the block calls that CoFi, community finance, right? That's the new term. There's so many FIs. There's DeFi, TradFi. I mean, pick something that doesn't have an acronym, but community finance will extend to assisting, let's say, KOLs or influencers to monetize their community, right? There's lots of ways to do this that will have great impact into the marketplace. And it's like Meta Peace tried it. Like there's been some NBA contracts that have tried to monetize, but we're not talking about necessarily finance from a security standpoint. We're talking about, as you said, Casey, participation in the community and getting benefits from your participation in that community. Again, $20 cash or $20 in tokens, 1 year life. Huge difference for millions of gamers around the world.
Yeah, I spent some time, as you know, in the travel industry, and when this all stuff comes up, I keep thinking about loyalty, whether it's loyalty in travel, whether it's loyalty in
Right.
retail, whatever it is. But they've always had a hard time managing loyalty and managing it across, all their brands and things. And man, this to me is just a way to really um, do amazing things when it comes to loyalty for companies and industries.
Well, it also brings up the point of collaboration, right? Web3, everybody talks about Web3, about NFTs and tokenization. Web3 is a movement and a shift. And I'm, not gonna, personify my age in this situation, but when the internet was invented, it wasn't invented for phishing and identity scams and everything else. But the technology that existed back then wasn't able to verify identity and retain anonymity. That exists today. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. Getting in place is another story. But once you've thought about Web3 in the context of something larger, it is a movement, and one of the key movements in that is collaboration. So if I take Good Game can now collaborate with a whole bunch of other streaming services and streaming partners and other tokenization partners to create this collaborative network, which they are at the center of. They are the hub and there are spokes. But if you think about it in reverse, every other partner is a hub and Good Game is a spoke, right? So, and if you think of the individual, I am now in charge of my data. I am the hub and Good Game is a spoke, right? So this hub and spoke model starts to change dramatically, but you're right, with loyalty and rewards and everything else, community finance or Ko-Fi creates this massive opportunity to, again, spend 20 bucks, spend 20 bucks on tokens, 1 year, lifetime, and I get all these rewards, and I might get a staking bonus for keeping my tokens on hold. So I might actually get more than I could have ever got for $20 in cash. So you've got to make the value proposition really unique, but it has to include rewards, loyalty, tokenization. There's so many things when you think about a retail project that you should be looking at.
Love it. Thank you so much for that. And thanks to our amazing engaged audience. They do have a lot of comments and questions we will get to. Like, for example, JK said, I see RWA tokens as the new commodity better than fiat. What do you think about that, David?
Well, I will say, without giving anything away yet, that we are currently looking at a massive, literally commodity resource play for RWAs in the gold sector. So yes, the answer is absolutely. RWAs, again, tokenization also creates democratization, right? That's the opportunity. It puts power back to the people. I'm not talking about DAOs. I'm not talking about other constructs, but RWAs gives me the opportunity to participate on a level playing field with a major fund, right? Which I may never have that opportunity.
Very good point. Thank you. Thank you for the comment, JK, as well. And Ian says, utility is people performative use case product. Thank you for that. Ian, really good comments. And Chris says, I'm interested in fractionalized ownership of companies that I invest in as a customer and evolving into collaborator, even if it's a fraction of a percentage. I think it's very aligned with what you just said, David, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's sort of like holding a share of Apple doesn't give you any benefit. And I'm going to use an example that I think is so super cool. there was, and they don't exist anymore. And again, it's out of the Toronto, Canada area. There used to be a company called Irwin Toys. And at every shareholder meeting, Irwin Toys would ask shareholders to bring their children, right? And what they do is they set up a room for the parents to do, and the investors to do the regular board meeting. And then they'd have a room full of the toys that Irwin produced, because it also allowed their customers to understand, for them to understand their customer, better, because their investor was the parent, but their customer was the child, right? At the end of the day. And there was a company in Buffalo, New York, and that used to advertise, and we used to get the advertisements in Toronto, and you say, where an educated consumer is our best customer. So I think what Chris is saying is valid, right? I'm an educated customer of this company. I would like to own a fractionalized piece of this company, not one of a billion shares, right? Because if I'm a shareholder of one of the majors, if I hold one share, that's great, but there's billions of other shares out there. I can get a better, and I can get a better return by being loyal to that brand.
Really good point. Thank you. And Shadi is asking, what role does the storytelling play in helping consumers understand and trust the tokenized experiences?
I think storytelling is the biggest part of a deal. I think I love elevator pitches. Tell me what you do in very few words. Okay, that's great, because it gives me a synopsis. It's like reading, I'm going to give an example. It's like reading the jacket or the cover of the back of a book, right? That should entice me to want to read the whole book, right? If I really like that. And I have some funny stories, but I won't go into those. But at the end of the day, I think what Shadi is saying is storytelling is really important, because it allows us to connect with others. When we tell stories, we create opportunities for you to say, yeah, I understand that, or yeah, I like to be like that, or yeah, that brand is going where I want it to go. So I think CEOs and visionaries need to get out there and tell stories. Don't just talk with big words or, words of the day. Get out there and tell them why you're there. Why did you invent this product? Why did you do this? What was the challenge that you faced that caused you to come here to deal with this? I know why I'm here. I know why I'm with the block today, because I saw countless founders having issues in connecting with investors. I saw countless investors trying to invest in thousands of companies and just roll the dice. What I'm trying to do with the block as part of my contribution to the block is create this concierge opportunity where we can put people together to find better solutions and faster ways to meet the objectives of each other.
Yeah, I think it makes me think of how important right now it goes directly with authenticity. I mean, I think as founders and as everybody, you just being authentic is especially this younger generation that's coming up. I mean, they want to deal with authentic brands. They want to deal with authentic people. They don't, they're used to content creators now that do well because they are authentic, and you get to know the real person in a lot of cases. And I think that's a major shift that brands are starting to having to figure out how they do that. And I'm sure with investors and everything else, founders, you've got to show that show that passion, show why you're really there and what's behind it, so.
And where did you come from? I mean, I tell this story countless times, just because what you see today is not where we started. My girlfriend at the time, who's been my wife for almost 38 years, is, we made a decision that I would take the $2,000 that I saved and open a business, right? And now there's been wonderful opportunities, and we really didn't know anybody. That 6 degrees of separation is usually 2 degrees when you find that you know enough people. But at the end of the day, this has been a magic carpet ride. And I think everybody can benefit from that opportunity if they ask questions. Don't be afraid I'm learning every day. And I'm learning, very honestly, I'm learning from people who's the age of my daughter, right? And my daughter jokingly says, "Dad, you're working with my friends." right? My daughter's in her early 30s, and so I'm learning from great people, again, like Michael Gord at GDA Capital, and the people at the block, who some of them are less than half my age, because they're plugged into things that I don't see every day. So if you're not constantly asking questions, and I often say, and the words may not be justified, the only stupid question was the one that was never asked. If you don't know something, ask. That's how you'll learn. Don't sit there and think you're the smartest person in the room, because I guarantee you, you're not. I'm not. So, and don't think you know it all, because somebody's really going to kick your butt if you think that's going to happen. So, and I'm trying to be politically correct here, but and then leverage up. I was so lucky early on that a good friend of mine, his brother-in-law, was the head of one of the largest corporations in Canada with 4,000 locations. And he mentored me. He didn't have to, he did. And, I met some of the biggest sports personalities, political personalities, celebrities around the world. I, had opportunities to work on, I'm a huge Marvel fan, had opportunities to work on the Avengers movie, the Iron Man series, Prometheus, helped Disney Animation with the release of the song Let It Go. Like I said, I have Guinness World Record with Kiss. Just so many of these opportunities came up because I put myself in the right place at the right time, because I asked questions. So if I can give anyone advice, is keep asking questions, but find also mentors. And I guess I keep saying this, but that's the reason I'm with the block today. And that's why the reason I take on this enhanced role is because I believe that that is going to be the epicenter of where people can congregate, collaborate, learn, have access, and do things in the blockchain industry that just weren't possible before.
Thanks, David. I had Let It Go out of my head for a long time, and now the song is back in my head. Thank you very much.
Back in your head. There you go.
Nico, you have anything else? One thing I wanted to do, because I teased it on LinkedIn, is I said that I would pry one of David's crazy good stories out of him, a quick one, whether it's the famous MySpace one, or you have tons of good ones. So I'll let you pick one, unless Nico has something else to go with right now.
Well, I'll pick something that I think everybody can get into. So after I did some work for Disney and several of the movies, I got an opportunity when I was in London, England. A friend of mine said, who was associated with the group at Disney, said, can we get a driver and can we go out to Shepperton Studios? And I said, sure, not knowing what that meant. Hired a driver in a car and go out to Shepperton Studios, which was a 2-hour ride. And halfway through the ride, I'm going, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And because I'm not driving. Anyways, we got there and the studio was closed. The lot was closed. And he said, don't worry, we're getting in. So went through security, get into this parking lot, and it's all back lot. And I said, okay, why are we here? He said, I know you've met this guy before, but you got to get out of the car. We want to thank you, and we're going to do something special for you. So I get out of the car, and who's standing there? Chris Hemsworth, Thor, in a shorts and a t-shirt. And I'm going to tell you, guy is gorgeous. I mean, he's gorgeous. And this wry smile, the Thor smile. He's got the Thor smile. And I had met him once before, and he knew I was a big comic book collector. So I had the distinct opportunity, such a nice guy, such a super nice guy. I had the distinct opportunity of getting a tour of Tony Stark's apartment for Avenger 2 on a closed lot when no one else was there, personally done by him. And I don't take pictures when I meet celebrities. I don't do anything. But I did let my wife know on the way back how beautiful a man he was. And sent a bottle of wine for him and his wife for dinner that evening. And it was a magical experience. And I've had the luxury of those magical experiences coming really from nothing, but creating this opportunity because I asked the right people, I met the right people, I tried to be as polite and respectful along the way, and it works. I mean, one of my fondest memory is working with Stan Lee, the creator of Marvel Comics. I mean, Stan and I were friends in the latter part of his life, and just an outstanding individual. Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, for all the craziness that Kiss is, they're two of the most amazing, smartest, warmest, generous people I have ever met in my life. So there are so many great people out there.
What was your Guinness Book record with Kiss? What was that?
So we have the most nationalities in an online chat. So the most participants from different countries in an online chat, and it was with Gene and Paul.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Wow, impressive. Thank you so much for sharing that and that great story. Really amazing. Let's get into a few other questions and then we get into the predictions. Felipe is asking, what are some early signs that a cultural product is tokenizable or ready to be part of a new value system?
Well, again, what is it that the consumer gets from being part of your organization? What are you going to give the consumer? What's in it for them, right? You don't want to sell them shares, but you want to share them. You want to share with them value that can be created. I mean, when you think about tokenization, NFTs were the first big tokenization. But again, I was talking about membership. Does membership in your organization support a value proposition? That is the easiest way. As Casey called it, loyalty, but I'll just call it membership. I think they're to a great extent one and the same. If I do X in your organization and support you, what am I getting in return? And that has to be an exponential figure. If I give you $20, I don't want $20. I want access. I want value propositions. I want unique things. If it's a game, I want micro items that no one else can get. Companies like Blizzard with World of Warcraft, why they aren't tokenized, have done great things even today with Twitch to create games. Axie Infinity, great premise, but it became, a trading card platform basically for NFTs. So I think you've got to create value that the consumer can't otherwise get from just being part of the game. That's when tokenization matters. Oops. Nico?
Sorry, I'm mute. I was saying we have a question also related to AI. I know we wanted to talk about it, but we don't really have too much time. So if you can just briefly tell us your perspective on AI.
Yeah, I'm involved in an AI project now. Again, been in AI for 15 years, so I'm involved in it now. I think again, it depends on what the ecosystem is. Is it agentics? Is it baseline? It depends on where you are. And does it touch the consumer, or is it a business model? So I need a little bit more because it could be an RWA or it could be a tokenized event. But AI opportunities are a unique next gen way of doing that. A lot of AI products use credits. Can you diminish the value of a credit? Can you charge a consumer less by having a tokenized membership?
Really good points. Thank you so much. Casey, do you have any other questions, comments?
No, I think, no, this is great. I think anything that, I guess, David, that you feel that, are things that, if you are going to start researching and learning something, if you're a young person right out of school, or if you're still in school, what are some of these areas that you would really focus on if you were 18 again and you were starting out?
Well, I have a very strong statement. It's Simpsons related. Homer Simpson looks for donuts, and I look for holes. Right? So I'm not looking for the donut. I'm looking what's missing in the hole. So first of all, what are you passionate about? What drives you? What are your passions? If your passions are comic books, what can you do that disrupts the comic book industry? Can you create a new character? Can you create new value? If you're in gaming, what can you do in the gaming industry? If you're in AI and think AI is great, find your passion first. Don't do something that you're not passionate about. So find that passion. And there are lots of opportunities. Influencers and KOLs really, for the most part, started with their passions, right? They've been uber successful based on their passion. So start with your passion. Secondly, find something that you can do that's not going to take a lot of startup capital at the beginning. What can you do? I recently looked at a game where it was a great game premise, but none of the people in the organization could put a game together. They wanted to hire a development firm to do the game. Well, for me, that's a non-starter because you don't understand your industry. You can't produce product within your industry. So make sure that not only you're passionate, but where can you be expert level in that? And if you can't code, don't worry. There's lots of people out there that can code, and ChatGPT can code. So there's a lot of things that you can learn very quickly. Do research. Find out where the good, bad, and ugly is. And if it doesn't work, re-engineer. Try and figure out, because sometimes your first idea is your best idea, but your third idea is the amazing one, right? It's the amazing one. If you look at successful companies, most of them weren't first; they were third. I think, Casey, you probably know this too, right? It's like Google wasn't first; they were like third or fourth, right? Facebook wasn't first. Amazon wasn't first. None of these multi-billion. Apple wasn't first. None of these companies were first. They were second, third, fourth. So find out what others are making mistakes at and do that. And then, if you're a startup or you're an investor, and again, I'm not asking anyone to do something that they shouldn't research, but take a look at what we're doing at the block and see if there's opportunities that exist there, because that's what we're here for.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for all this great advice. And what do you see in the next 5 to 10 years happening in these areas of like cultural capital, tokenization, and AI?
Wow. I'm trying to deal with what happens tomorrow, or the next day, or even 3 days from now. It's it's like drinking from a fire hose, right? As they say, it's not like drinking from a garden hose. It's like drinking from a fire hose. And I have several friends in the industry who themselves are fire hoses. So can I predict what's happening a year from now? No. Is AI going to remain prevalent? Is gaming going to be prevalent? Is consumer activities going to remain prevalent? Yes. I think if Jeff Bezos would have said to everyone day one, I am going to be quote unquote a logistics company. I'm going to I'm going to displace the U.S. Post Office. I'm going to displace UPS. I'm going to displace FedEx. Everyone would have said politely, Jeff, here's a jacket that ties up in a backlit. Let's put you in a little rubber room, right? But what Jeff Bezos did is he sold books because books were a difficult distribution method. Then he started selling other things. And where does Amazon, in my humble opinion, make most of its money from? Not selling products, but listing products. So find the hidden gem in what you're doing, because what you want to do and what makes money might be different. So for the next 5 years, I don't know, because the world is changing. I think RWAs are going to become massively acceptable, where I'm fractionalizing something or getting a royalty payment for something that I'm directly invested in. I don't have to hold tons of shares, own 1 million shares to get 3 cents a share. I'm going to fractionalize it and own a larger piece. And that's going to happen from everything from buildings to Ferraris. It's happening today, to gold mines. And then for utility, look at where you can give consumers the greatest value, because I think value plays for consumer programming, whether it's entertainment, media, sports, all that is going to transition into tokenization.
Really cool. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure there are a lot for people to look into and explore. And how can people find you and support you? Is LinkedIn the best place?
LinkedIn is the best place. And again, I'm going to give someone some advice on that real quick. So I woke up one April and said to myself, I have 1,200 LinkedIn connections. And I said, my birthday is in early June. And I said, I bet myself by early June I could get, 5,000 if I worked at it. And I just worked at it. Didn't use lead gen. I just worked at it. And by June, by my birthday, I had about 7,500. Today, I have just under 28,000 connections on LinkedIn. So when my friends want something, they usually come to me. So LinkedIn is still one of the best platforms to build your personal brand. Get out there, be friendly, be respectful, don't solicit, connect. Then if there's an opportunity for something, ask politely, ask a question, and more than likely people will respond to you.
What a good point and advice. Thank you so much. Casey, do you have anything to add? Closing comments?
No, I'm just excited to watch David's path and his team because he's always he's one to watch. You know, they're going to do special things, and so I would just say, you know, keep an eye on it and plug in and see where it goes. And David, I'll come out to I'll meet you in Dubai sometime because I have to go to the Museum of the Future after meeting some of those folks in South by Southwest and seeing all of that.
It's amazing. I didn't go. I never go anywhere when I travel for business, but it looks amazing. But I'm not going in the summer because it's over 54 degrees Celsius, which is about 120. It wasn't bad. It was only about 105 when I was there this past week.
Yeah, for us Texans, that's nothing. It's
Yeah,
all right.
I'm in the southern United States for part of the winter, so yeah, it's not walk in the park.
And they're mostly indoors in Dubai. They don't really go out.
Indoors. You know, I walked to the mall, which was a 10-minute walk, which I liked. But even if you're in the DIFC, the downtown core, people go cab from building to building. It's so hot.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the great insights, David. Thank you, Casey, for your great introduction and co-hosting with me. This was fantastic. And thanks to our amazing audience, Ian, JK, Chris, Shadi, Felipe, Jin, everyone who tuned in live or would be watching the recording. We're so grateful for you. Please come back next week, every Tuesday at 12 p.m. EST. We're live on LinkedIn. Thank you, David. Thank you, Casey. Have a lovely rest of your day. Bye.
Bye-bye.